Welcome back to the Business Roundtable Podcast. I am your host, David Carr, founder of Steward Your Business, bringing people together to accomplish great things. And I am so honored to have a guest, Adam Christing, who I've known for years, here on the podcast today with us. Welcome, Adam.
Hey, thank you, David. Great to be with you today.
Yeah, well, you and I go a way back. And I'm super excited because you are you've just done so many things. We're going to get into it today. But you are the founder of Clean Comedians. You have done so many events and emceed. In fact, you were ranked, I think, #1 MC in LA, Best of LA. You've done thousands of events. I mean, just so many different events.
I thought my mom was the only one who remembered that, David. Thank you.
See, there you go. See, we're gonna get lots of comedy in here. Adam is great. Thank you, Adam. And I had the honor, and some of you guys don't know because I'm not doing it as active as I once did, but years ago I had my own DJ MC company, and I loved entertainment. And Adam, I had to give me the honor of being able to be the MC of his daughter's wedding, which I felt really a privilege to do because he is a pro at this, and he invited me in to be a part of that, and we've known each other ever since. And now it has a great new book coming out called The Laughter Factor, which we're going to get into as well, which I'm super excited about. But Adam, just thanks for coming on here. Thanks for bringing humor. We haven't got to get too humorous on this show. Sometimes we get a little more serious, and I'm glad to have you here, bringing some levity and just bringing your wisdom to our listeners. Oh, did I freeze, Adam? Can you hear me? There we go.
Sounds crass, but in the Hollywood entertainment industry.
Oh, hold on. Let's see here.
It's great that you mentioned all of this because I think there's a link between funny and money. And I believe that humor is a shortcut to trust. And really, when you get down to it, business is about relationships. And so people like to buy from those that they like and trust. And I can't think of a better way to connect with people than putting a smile on their face and also receiving a smile. It's like a boomerang. You know, when you smile or make someone laugh, you feel better too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Adam, I liked our guests that come on the show because our listeners may have never heard of you before, even though you've been around, you've done a ton. And by the way, connect with Adam on LinkedIn. He has some great content. But for those that aren't connected, don't know you, Adam, give us a little bit about your background. I gave a little bit, but I love a little bit more context about why do you do what you do? And you're an MC, you're a comedian. I mean, you've just done a ton of things, but talk a little bit about your journey as a business owner and a leader, and now why you wrote this book, The Laughter Factor.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
It really started from being broke, from having no money. My background, I took a bunch of classes. I went to Biola University. I majored in speech. And so I got to be on the speech team. And my favorite topic was called Speech to Entertain. And what I didn't realize was it was preparing me for the two worlds that I'm really in now, which is doing comedy, but also weaving in an empowering message. And so then I became a youth pastor. And then I quit. And now if I were to quit something, I would probably line something up ready to, take its place. But back then I'm like, I quit. And so I had no income. My wife was student teaching. So there was a time when we were returning wedding gifts just to pay our bills.
Oh my gosh.
And I had this feeling, I thought, if I'm going to make this happen, I always wanted to be an entertainer, a speaker, have a background doing magic. And so I just started literally dialing for dollars back when people would pick up the phone.
Yeah.
Back when we used phones for phone calls, right? And but one thing I learned, David, was to lead with a mindset of service. So rather than calling a business or a school or a church or a college, instead of saying, hey, book me, I would say, I'm calling to see if I can be of service to you for your school assembly program or for your after dinner entertainment at your banquet. And I might get rejected 9 out of 10 times or more. But I started to see a pattern that if I was willing to offer service and genuinely help, a number of people would book me. So one month, going way back, August of 1992, I did 62 gigs in 1 month Southern
Whoa.
California. And my favorite one was near where you live. I was in Big Bear,
Oh,
California.
really?
And David, I was so exhausted that night. I think I'd done 3 things at a school and then a business event. So it was like my 6th performance that
Oh my
day.
gosh.
And
Dang.
I repeated the same joke 3 times. I was so mentally wiped out. And the first time I got a nice laugh. The second time I didn't really get a laugh. And so it kind of hit me, oh, and I told it the 3rd time and it got a big laugh again. So it looked like I did it on purpose, but uh, I don't do quite as many, we call them gigs in the comedy world
Yes,
as I
yes.
used to, but I'm probably on a stage about 100 times a year still
Wow.
as an
Wow.
MC, as a humorist, as a keynote speaker. And every single time I count it a privilege because when someone invites you to, whether you're speaking to 10 people or 1,000 people, you're representing that organization, their
Mhm.
people, whether it's a sales goal or a faith-based goal or bringing unity to a nonprofit or an association. So I've learned a lot of things the hard way by making just about every mistake you can make.
Well, you're very humble, Adam, and I'm so grateful to have you here because you have such a history and you really do have a servant's heart. I definitely see that and I've experienced that myself. Anybody that gets a chance to be in your world and the way that you help and lift up, I know that you've raised a ton of money for nonprofits, helping make a difference in the world, and I so appreciate that. And in the daily in the humor, I gotta say, I showed this. I was before we recorded, but I wanted to show this to the audience. If those of you that are watching this, this is the Adam's humor. He sent me soap on a rope. And I thought that was so
Well,
hilarious.
you have to tell them what's at the end of the rope, though.
Yeah, we got the microphone.
There you
Yeah,
go.
for
Because
those of you that are listening, it's soap on a rope microphone. It says,
yeah,
no slip, just grip. We've got, hold on the microphone, rock on. So I thought that was so hilarious. And so you, Adam, you
yeah,
know,
it's fun. Well, I've identified these 5 laugh languages because sometimes we think, well, I'm not a comedian, someone might say. And you
mhm.
might not be. Maybe you're not going to get a Netflix special. That's okay. But one of the laugh languages is surprise. And I noticed when you told me you got the gift, you were smiling. And so
Yeah.
there's something about a simple gesture of sending someone a surprising card, a funny birthday card. We send these giant bouncy balls in the mail with no box. And after I do an event, I will write with a Sharpie, I had a ball at the Chevron
Oh
annual
my
gathering.
gosh.
And so imagine the mail carrier walks into the office with this like a bouncy ball that a preschooler would use, like you'd get at Walmart.
Yes.
And people, it's funny, I've sent expensive chocolate gifts, but something that makes them smile and laugh is more memorable.
Oh my gosh. No, that is so true, Adam. And I think sometimes we just don't think about that thing. So being proactive, like you said, and just saying, how could I make somebody smile? And I know you've got this new book coming out, the Laughter Factor, which if you guys want to go check it out, go check out it's just that thelaughterfactor.com. You guys can go check it out. But in that you break down some things, like you just said, kind of the humor tactics, if you will, for us.
Yes.
And then you mentioned one of them is surprise, but what are the other ones that you would say, Adam, that help us in bringing
I'll
humor?
give you a quick backdrop. You've probably heard of that very famous book called The 5 Love Languages, Dr.
Yes.
Gary Chapman. It sold a little bit more than my book may sell, sold 20 million copies.
Yep.
And we gave a copy to our youngest son, James, who's now 21. He's in college. And hey, buddy, what is your love language? And he said, Venmo. So that was fascinating.
Oh, jeez.
But it got me thinking that sometimes people feel like I mentioned, that maybe they're not a stand-up comedian or like, hey, I'm not a clown. But as a human being, you're also a humor being. And
Mm.
when you find and discover the tactic or the laugh language that fits your personality. So we talked about one of them, surprise. An-
Yes.
Another one I simply call poke. And this is where you make fun of yourself and beat people to the rush, and where you gently tease other people. And the
Mm.
third one is one of my favorites. It's called in jokes. And this is where you have a knack for developing like nicknames,
Yeah.
inside
Uh-huh.
jokes, stories, and this is all about the unbelievable fun you can have with shared experiences. And
Mm.
that kind of stuff wouldn't work at a comedy club Like if I was at the Ice House in Pasadena, California, where a lot of great comedians have played, and if I said, hey, I want to talk about Jerry and the coffee maker, well, that's going to bomb at a comedy club. But in the right setting where everybody knows about Jerry and the coffee maker or whatever it is, it becomes this inside humor. The fourth one is for all the dad joke fans out there, all the punsters. I like to say, hey, it's fourth down and you're punning.
Oh.
This tactic is called wordplay, and it's for people who love, banter, clever language, and wit. And then the final one is called amplify. And this is people have this laugh language if they like to exaggerate, tell stories. Like somebody goes to the grocery store and they might just say, there was a long line. And then somebody else turns it into like this epic tale. They were going to make me the mayor of produce. I was there so long. And he's just like, and so and we created a quiz, David. It's really fun.
That's awesome.
It takes like 4 or 5 minutes to complete the quiz. And it tells you, it describes your laugh language and gives you some suggestions on how to best use it.
I love that, Adam. I mean, I've talked on the podcast. One of the tools I use in my toolbox is called the 5 voices. Is your leadership voice?
Yeah.
It's a similar concept, but it just breaks it down in a simple way. And I'm super excited because, hey, I'm not typically that humor guy, but like you said, this could be different ways you could use this in a way that builds relationship. And I think that's fantastic because probably, would you say, Adam, I had a question for you on this. So when you understand this, how you speak that, like you said earlier, you joked about your son's love language, but if you understand the love language of your others too, how do they like to be joked with, right? How do they like to be interact with? So it's like, well, here's my preferred style, but what is it like to be also to be playful? Is that something that you get into?
Hey,
there we go. You're back. Pause there for a minute.
Okay, I'm going to let you work the magic of editing.
Yeah, we'll get that. Yes, absolutely.
Many years ago, I worked at a magic shop, and I met this gentleman named Earl Nelson, who turned out to be one of the all-time great sleight of hand artists. But his personality was not fun, not zany. It was like almost like the caricature of the accountant personality. But I noticed something. He would have you pick a card and the card would disappear and then would end up in his wallet. Then it would catch on fire, whatever the illusion was. And just like you laugh, they'd start laughing. I thought, well, he's not telling jokes. He's not being, wacky. But surprise is, I would say, even if you're not sure which of your humor tactics fits you best, you can't go wrong when you say something surprising, when you send a gift that people aren't expecting. So I've told my team at cleancomedians.com that we want to make people sad. And what I mean by that is the acronym SAD. With your clients, with your coworkers, with your family friends, you want to sad them. And here's what it stands for: surprise and delight. And it might just be a little thing. Could even be a meme or something in an email or something silly you wear, or gifts are always great. But you break up the pattern of what everybody's used to. And I don't know why it works. It's like, maybe it's brain chemistry, but we get used to certain patterns.
Yeah.
And when you flip them, it just makes us laugh or smile.
No, you're right on the money, Adam. I think disrupting in a good way. It gets us, oh, that was something I wasn't unexpected. And yeah, we love to be, and then you said, I love that, surprise and delight. Because we want to have, go into something where we're not frightened, it's not scary, it's actually a good thing. It's like, oh my gosh, I love watching those videos. You watch those surprise videos, right? America's Funniest Home Videos, where people come in and surprise, and they get all, thrown off at first, but then they're literally happy, they're excited. At first, they're delighted in a good way of like, when you see the transition, or when you see somebody, I love there's those videos of like the servicemen coming from home, right, and surprising them, and oh my goodness, right? Those are just amazing.
And they touch the heart. And so when we talk about the other laugh language, another one of them is called poke. One time, I'll tell you a quick funny story. I was hired by one of the top accounting firms, KPMG. And they flew me to Washington, D.C., and they said, we're going to honor and roast 11 retirees. So they gave me 5 minutes to roast each one of them. And so here's what I did. I got to know what actually made them great and what people loved about them. And so instead of saying, well, she's short or he's heavy set. I never go after that stuff. But it turns out this guy's a great golfer. Well, that's something we can actually tease him about. Or she's known for saying certain expressions. We could tease her about that. And they were roaring with laughter. But most important to me was the retirees felt not just roasted, but actually celebrated, like when you give a toast at a wedding. And by the way, I still remember how awesome you were and what a contribution you made at my daughter's wedding. I'll never forget it. And I'll tell you why you did that. Not only were you very good with the equipment and you have a great voice, but you brought heart. And so there's a link between positive humor and coming from the heart. And so another little secret I'll share with your listeners is the unbelievable power of what I call authenticity, where you make fun of yourself a little bit. And so we think that by leading with a story, I'll give you a quick example. Many years ago, I was profiled in Success Magazine. So I could get on stage and say, hey, I was profiled in Success Magazine, and it's self-serving. But when I tell the truth of what really happened is the night before the reporter came to interview me, I was in such financial straits, they towed my car away. And so her was talking about, how to make money in business. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm being interviewed by Success Magazine. So now if I tell that story and just like tell the whole thing, I think two things happen. One, they say, I like this guy because he's being honest. And two, we see ourselves in each other's flops and failures. So there's a delicate balance. Like, I'm not talking about self-defeating humor. I'm talking about self-effacing humor. It's like a window. And as a leader, this makes you so much more approachable. And people are afraid to laugh at the boss, right? But as a leader,
absolutely.
If you go first, if you laugh at yourself first, now it's safe for us to have fun with each other.
Well, I think you're hitting on so many good points. And on the Business Roundtable podcast, we're talking about the business owner, or we're talking to those folks that may be in a leadership role, whether you're a group manager or director, department head, whatever the case might be. And I think to your point, Adam, they feel like, oh, I've got to be stoic. I got to have all the answers. I've got to hold it all together, or they won't believe me. And it's like, it's counter to that. In fact, they don't know, there's no relationship there. And so you said, I liked, that going first in being in a good way, because I think when you say that, Adam, I know you're so successful, and that the event, that experience it's part of your history, but it doesn't define you. That's not like, well, Adam, that's just one moment in time in a clip. And so you're not defined by that, just part of your story. And I think I've noticed too, Adam, because I look at LinkedIn and I see these things and I fall into this trap too of telling story, not telling stories, but actually just saying like, I was on Success Magazine. But
Right.
This is why you should listen to me, right? This is my accomplishment. Instead, it's not as relatable. And the way you broke it down, it's like, oh man, he's actually been through that or had that experience. I want to lean in a little bit more. I can tell he's more authentic, and instead of just trying to be this perfect, picture perfect person,
You're so right. I just posted recently about this. I'm not sure if you saw this one, but I said, I'm not always awesome, but I've learned to be flawsome. And it's kind of a bad pun, but there's something to it, because when we embrace our flaws and we're not afraid to own them and share them, the opposite happens of what we think might happen. They feel like they can trust us. They feel, maybe most importantly, like they can relate. And I've noticed a link in the word comedy and community, same root. And so probably the first human beings were sitting, in front of the cave or whatever around the fireplace, or the fire pit. And so when you're at the campfire, what happens? You tell stories.
Yep.
You maybe do skits. I know for me, when I was leading youth groups, people still talk 20, 30 years later about, remember the time around the campfire when you sang or you did a magic trick. And so it's just kind of letting our hair down. Of course, as business owners, as leaders, there has to be a balance. And I've seen some people go too far where they feel like they have to do a 45-minute stand-up routine. It might be as simple as weaving a few more pows into your presentation. So can you hit them with a funny visual aid? Can you do something that invites audience participation? Can you share a vulnerable story? Can you do a quiz that's interactive? Can you give away some prizes? Pretty soon, the 45 minutes feels like 15 minutes because you've made it entertaining.
Yeah. Yeah. You're what I hear you saying, Adam, and any good presenter, and I know you're so good at this, is and you were I've seen some of your great presentations with magic and other things where you're involving the people and being a part of the process. And I think whatever that is, like you just gave a whole list of examples. I think it's taking it off of you and realizing, how can I involve these other people? And I think that's where, like, the role that humor brings in, like, team building, because there's a lot of burnout. People are feeling disconnected, and I feel, and because a lot, even though we're trying to get people back in the work offices, go back to work, what I found, even when we were back in the office, quite honestly, Adam, before COVID and all this stuff, there still was a disconnect for people. I could be sitting in the cubicle or office next door, and I haven't really built a relationship with them. There's a lot of stress. And how do you see, I mean, you've got highlights, but I mean, I think if humor's done well, it's just like how you find it to de-escalate when things are really stressed, right?
That's a good
Intention.
word. Sometimes I think it's a great question. Sometimes I think it's about identifying shared pain. A lot of times people think that comedians, for example, are just funny, wacky all the time. But think of someone like a Robin Williams, who sadly we lost, or Steve Martin, is actually a kind of a shy, introverted guy. So it doesn't mean you're not a serious person. It just means that you're taking moments to let people have a moment of refresh, a reboot. And so, for example, right after COVID, when live events started happening again, I would come out. One of the first things I would say, wow, I'm so glad the pandemic is over. I sanitized my hands so many times. I actually found the answers to my 8th grade Spanish quiz. And so it's a cute joke, but I think it reminds people, like, oh yeah, we went through that together. And then I talk about how great it is to be gathered together again. And so, like, right now we're seeing each other through the screen face to face, and that's cool. But there is something so magical about, like, for example, let's say you went to see a movie. My daughter and I went to a movie, and there were a couple of funny moments. And what happens? You look at each other and you just go, oh, we just experienced that together.
Yes.
So what I tell leaders is, you don't have to be a comedian, don't have to be a stand-up or a magician or even a professional speaker. But the word embedded in the word funny is fun. All you need to do is make it a culture where it's okay to have fun. And if you don't set that example as the leader, it's really hard for people to feel comfortable doing it. And again, it doesn't mean you have to get up there and do, juggle or something. It might be that you invite participation. Like, one thing I've done that's crazy, dad jokes have become so popular again. I will go to a group and we'll hand out like 4 terrible dad jokes, and we'll have 4 different people read them, and then we'll have a sound effect of, ba-dum bum tsh. And then somebody gets a silly prize for delivering the best dad joke. That might only take 5 minutes, but you've just changed the whole mood of the room from, what's the information, to more like, hey, we're connected.
Yeah, I mean, that I think is so important. And sometimes different leaders are going so fast, sometimes they don't realize, hey, I'll actually, if I slow down and I do this, in the end, I like how you were saying, it doesn't have to be 45 minutes. It's just being intentional here, engaging them. You'll go further, you'll get greater engagement. Because I mean, I know when like you just said, if I have a positive experience, I'm laughing, and I know that you've got this new group that you're inviting folks to come on and check out to, where you can laugh together, have this experience, which I think, we'll let you share some more on that. But I feel like when you get that, it's releasing, literally, I mean, this is science, the endorphins in our brain, the way we're experiencing it, right? And you're like, oh my goodness, it's creating this neural pathway, if you will, my science background. But I geek out on this because, we'd rather have that than having, our cortisol go up, our stress level hormones go up. And that also gets embedded. And we're like, so how many of us have ever got, like, you see the phone call coming from your boss? Do you feel good about that? Or do you feel like, oh crud, he doesn't normally call me. And so the stress level goes up, right?
I actually mentioned this in the book, David, in the Laughter Factor, because there's a chapter called Leading with Laughter. And the question I ask leaders is this: when your name comes up and you're not there, do people smile? Like, do they feel fear? Do they feel worry? Do they feel dread? And so we have a lot of impact on how people perceive us by whether we connect first. And as a leader, there's a lot of responsibility. I get it. I've had employees. I still have staff today. I have many clients. But what I've learned is that it's relationship first. And my research surprised me because, of course, I saw what you just mentioned, that humor, no question. All the scientific and medical research is showing it makes us feel better. But what surprised me was the research is also showing that it makes us feel more cohesive, more collaborative, more playful. And you think about this in the works, that you really can't be mad at someone when you're laughing with them. I think when I was in, I think it was 3rd or 4th grade, there was a bully chasing me around the playground. And by the way, we're still friends. His name is also David, and he ended up winning a Super Bowl ring. So this was a big kid, and he ended up in the NFL later. But I knew that I knew he could take me. I was a scrawny kid, and I don't know how it hit me, but I thought, I wonder if I can make him laugh. I started teasing him, making fun of myself. You'll never catch. I don't even know what I said, but he started laughing, and he literally fell down on the grass, and he stopped chasing me. And I think today, as leaders, sometimes we're chasing, and we can come across as controllers.
Yes.
If we just let things breathe a little bit. And one temptation people have is, if you do try a joke, and if you want to talk about, I have tips for how people can improve their joke telling, but there's this moment of vulnerability where I don't know if they're going to laugh. And it's tempting to fill that in and laugh at our own jokes. That's a no-no. It's also tempting to say to someone like, "Oh, you don't get it." And then they feel put down. But if you can just have the guts to let it breathe a moment, and it's okay if they don't laugh. In fact, that can become funny as well.
Yeah, I've been there, Adam. I put the joke out there and it completely fell flat. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I've only had that happen about 1,000 times in my career. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I get that. I mean, for those, I love learning about the craft. You've done this, Adam, for stand-up comedy, like doing all the jokes, but to get a full set of jokes to go up there for whatever it is, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half hour, that takes a long time to get all that in there, right? I mean, you didn't just come up with those overnight.
Well, here's the mistake. They say the difference between an amateur comedian and a pro entertainer is an amateur has the same audience and is always trying new material, and a pro has the same old material and different audiences. This is challenging for a leader because you probably have the same customers, the same sales or HR team. And so your challenge will become keeping it fresh. But here's another secret for that is, not only do you want to learn your laugh language, but get to know the laugh languages of other people. If you have someone who works for you who belongs in a penitentiary, well, buy one of those. There's a button that I sent someone. You got the microphone nope thing, but I sent another one of our laugh launchers this button where you push the button and the worst dad jokes of all time just are audibly presented. And I knew that he would appreciate that. So if you listen, people will give you clues. Like, if someone on your team is a great storyteller, why not have them start the meeting and say, "Hey, I want you to tell the story of the time 5 years ago we were at the staff retreat," and you give them 5 minutes, and it makes them, you put the spotlight on them. Everyone's laughing. And so I think the more leaders can give away some of their authority and some of the spotlight, the better for everybody.
That is so true, Adam. And that's one thing I work with business owners and their teams is like, how do we get you as potentially the apex out of the way a little bit and let some others have the light on them? And oftentimes they're like, yeah, I totally would like to that. I didn't even think about it. I didn't even think, just to what you're saying, Adam, invite him. I just wasn't even considering that. So as you're listening to that, I want to, hopefully, like Adam said, consider that. And I think more than ever today, Adam, because I work with a lot of companies that are distributed workforce that don't come in the office all the time.
Sure.
And so whether it's even on the video or at the beginning, just be intentional, leaving space. But to your point, Adam, I think I found at least uh, more businesses or leaders trying to they go too I think too long between bringing those people together to have that shared experience. It's kind of like an oil change, right? Like, hey, we could go longer and keep the gar going for a while, but it will break down at some point. So why don't we do it? It doesn't have to be every day, but let's do it a little bit more frequently to create these touch points, like you're saying, Adam. Has that been your experience?
Absolutely. There's a saying I'm sure you've heard, and David and your listeners have heard, called read the room. But I
Mhm.
think even deeper is feel the room.
Mm.
So a lot of my work is serving as an event host, as an MC.
Mhm.
And I might have a joke that I'm ready to get up there and share, or I'm going to cue a video that's coming on the screen or whatever.
Mhm.
But what I've learned is, in fact, my Irish grandmother told me, you have two ears and only one mouth.
Yes.
And so I listen my way into the laughter. So if someone, for example, let's say I'm doing a nonprofit event as the MC, and we see a video about a family that's been through the ringer,
Mm.
I'm not going to get up there and do a dad joke, right? I
Mhm.
might I
Mhm.
might give the audience a moment to feel what's
Mm.
happening in the room. I might even say, "Hey, let's just take 30 seconds and process what we just watched." Now I can then take them to the next place. So as leaders, I think we lead by listening first, and it doesn't
Mhm.
mean you don't get to your message or your vision. It's just really goes back to almost communication 101, which is there's a sender and a receiver. And so more often than not, we need to be better receivers, and that will enhance our ability to send the message.
Mhm. Mhm. I mean, I like how you said read the room, but read the feelings. And I think
Yeah.
today, I was actually at a conference yesterday, and they were talking about doing performance reviews and all these other things. And I think we've got some great technology out there. Well, everyone knows AI is out there and things like that. However, it doesn't replace that emotional connection and
Right.
understanding that. And I think I'd be curious, Adam, your experience, because I'm pretty sure, I'd love to just confirm this. When you go to a room or an event, when you could tell the difference and the feeling of these people are really are they coming in filled up, or do you can see like they're really like, oh, these guys are running on fumes here. You see
Right.
the difference in the way they're
Oh,
reacting with
you
you.
can I remember walking into a room where it almost felt like there was a ghost or some,
Mm,
dark cloud in the room. It felt thick. And
mm,
so they asked me as a, outside kind of consultant person to share, and I thought, "I've gotta break up this tension that everyone can feel." And so
mhm.
I found out that there was someone in the room, in the group, who was known for wearing funny ties and really nice ties, but, like, every couple days, he'd have a cool tie. And this was kinda risky, but I said, something like, "Oh, I know what's the problem going on right now. It's Todd's tie." And that would never have been funny at a comedy club or nightclub, but that group, it was like a pause, and then everyone laughed, and Todd laughed the most, and it just changed the feeling. So first you have to, I guess it goes back to the classic improv trick, David, which is
Yeah.
called yes and. So you say
Uh,
yes to what's happening. If you have tension in the workplace, you've got a union dispute, you've got customer
mhm,
complaints, whatever. Don't you're not trying to laugh over it. You're not trying to just ignore it. You have to feel what's happening and
mhm.
maybe share that pain. I've noticed my grandfather was sober from alcohol for 45 years. He told me that he was
Wow.
drunk for 40 years. He was sober for 45 years. And he said something to me. He said, "I respect wisdom, but I obey pain." And so sometimes we
Yeah.
need to be listening to the pain, and
Mhm,
then we can share our wisdom or our wit or the
mm,
humor. But I
mhm,
always go back to listening. One more thing I'll share with your listeners, who I know many of them are leaders and business
mhm.
owners, is be intentional about it. Like, some people say, "Well, hey, if the funny happens," and that's always great. There are moments that just happen. I've dropped things. I one time lit a stage on fire,
Oh my
and the
god.
alarm. Yeah, I've just about every mistake I've made it. But maybe the greatest humorist in American history is Mark Twain. And
Mm,
Mark Twain gave hundreds and hundreds of speeches and lectures, but I love this quotation. He said, "It takes me 3 weeks to prepare a good impromptu speech." meaning it came off as spontaneous. It came off as perfect for the moment, but he gave that some thought and reflection before he shared it. So as a leader, you might look at your sales presentation or your annual report or whatever it is and think,
Mhm.
where can I intentionally insert a moment of participation, a
Mm.
joke, a memorable story? But leaders are visionaries who are intentional about moving people from one place to another.
Hmm. Wow, that's profound. I mean, I really appreciate what that is, and I think as you hopefully you guys are listening into Adam, you're getting all these different nuggets because he is just a wealth of them. And again, follow on his LinkedIn particularly because I think almost every day you've got something coming out there. I'm like, I got to it's just so fun and
I appreciate
engaging.
that. And
Yeah.
I do love LinkedIn, and I talk about this in the Laughter Factor that um, we think that we are like leaders, for example, think I'm a thinker, but the
Hmm.
best leaders are linkers. And I think LinkedIn and other, it's not really social media so much as the point is like I've met people in person.
Hmm.
I've had Zoom calls with people I've met on LinkedIn because you can find a common interest. Like you and I
Hmm.
have a lot of common
Yep.
links where we've
Yep.
lived, the kind of work we've done, faith-based organizations, that this
Hmm.
kind of thing. But I have learned that I can find a link with pretty much anyone who's breathing, and humor is a shortcut to trust. So if I can make them laugh, or even better, I meant to share this earlier.
Yes.
Even better than making other people laugh is when you laugh at something they said or did, not laugh at them, but laugh
Hmm.
with them. You know what that
Yes.
does? That makes them feel like, oh, they like me, they get me, they
Hmm.
understand. And most importantly, they're listening to me. So
Hmm.
again, I would tell managers, leaders, entrepreneurs, the temptation is to kind of be a show off. And so
Hmm.
what I tell people, for example, when I speak at an event or I'm the MC, I tell them, I'm not the star. I'm the cement. I'm trying to bring all these pieces
I love
together
that.
and create an experience where everyone goes like, this is the best event we ever had.
No, I mean that is great. Yeah, we're here as servant leaders. I feel like helping, and I love the way you just said that. If you can create a space for this person to be the star, to share, to help, to make you laugh, you're like, hey, oh my goodness, we're connecting. And I think it's what I can't remember who said this, but it's to not think less of myself, but to think think of myself less often, you
Right.
know,
Right.
right? And so it's just about, I know who I am and I appreciate that, but I want to be able to connect with others. And so, like you said, listening and creating a space intentionally instead of like going, we gotta go so quick, gotta get this thing done. It's like you're not building that relationship. And I think that's where that's the opportunity. And if you're going, and I know you get these, Adam, and I was talking to somebody else on the negative side of things. If you're just trying to push your idea without that, and I get them all the time through emails or messages, and there's no opportunity to encounter and build the relationship. But I love that you and I are on the same page about building relationship first before the opportunity. That's so important, and humor is definitely one of those ways.
No
So
doubt. And,
you know.
everybody's heard of the 80-20 rule, which is, I think it's
Mhm.
called the Pareto principle. And it's great. And it basically says that 20% of your customers or 20% of your activities result in 80% of your impact or your
Mhm.
income. It's a great principle, but I would take it even further for me. I've had several thousand clients over the years, certainly in the hundreds, and I can count probably 20 of them where I could make a really good living. And I think about it, I know their spouse's name. I might even know their pet's name. I'm having dinner with them and lots of laughs. And so look for ways to deepen the relationship, and humor. It's a bridge to that.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. I know we're getting to the end of the podcast here. I would love to go longer with you, Adam, because it's just a blast talking with you and learning from you. We're going to make sure that everybody, you guys connect with Adam. Go to the Laughter Factor um, .com.
Yeah, and
the laughter
you got it. And don't
factor.com.
forget the word the. It's the
Right?
laughterfactor.com.
Yeah, because everything's in there. The new book is coming out. Is it next month, Adam?
Yeah,
We're here
September
recording this in
16th.
August.
Yeah,
Yeah.
September 16th. And I'm so grateful. It's being distributed by Penguin Random House around the world. Last week, I did the narration, and David, that was challenging because I'm so used to having a live audience. So there are lots of jokes in the book. So I'll give an example of a tactic for creating laughter.
Yes.
And then I'll have an example of a joke or a way to do it. And there's no audience. And so I have to leave space. Like, I think they would laugh there. No, it was fun for me to record, but the book will be available in audio and certainly in print and digital on September 16th.
That is great. So you guys if you've been intimidated by humor in any way, like, I don't know how to do this, Adam's giving you a roadmap here, some great tactics, and to empower you. And ultimately, like we were talking about here, to be an effective leader, leading with humor and heart and connection. And I'm so grateful having you here, Adam. Any last thoughts you want to share? As people are listening to us, because we've covered a lot, anything that you would just want to impart to them as we're wrapping up the podcast today?
Yeah, it's actually maybe a bit of a more serious note. And most of the entertainers and comedians I know are actually serious people. And here's what I would tell my younger self, and what I would tell your listeners, I think, is you're probably great at something. Maybe it's writing, or maybe it's marketing, or maybe it's sales. And my encouragement would be this: make sure you're giving yourself some of what you give to other people. Many of us are wounded healers, right? So we give and serve, but make space to receive that back. Like, so for me, I need to stop sometimes and say, hey, I need to sit down and watch some good, clean comedy. Or I need to not just write a book, I need to read books that will encourage me. So bottom line would be, make sure you're receiving what you're giving.
Ooh, that's good. That's good, Adam. Thank you so much for being here on the podcast. We are so appreciative of you. And you guys, make sure you go check out thelaughterfactor.com. And Adam's all stuff's on there. Adam, again, thanks for being here on the podcast.
David, I've had a blast. Great to see you.
Absolutely. Everybody, of course, we love it when you subscribe and follow along. Leave any comments you have. We'll make sure that Adam gets them. Whether you're watching this on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform, come back again. And we appreciate y'all being here with us on the Business Roundtable Podcast. Until next time, be well. Thanks, everybody.